Imagine this. You're sitting across from a man in a dimly lit room. No badge, no title, no allegiance. The world outside is burning with ideologies, identities, and obligations. Yet he looks at you, not with rebellion, but with indifference, as if none of it ever mattered. And perhaps it never did. This man doesn't vote. He doesn't pray to any god. He doesn't crave approval, nor does he flinch at disapproval. He walks through society like a ghost who remembers what it once was to be human, before it was reduced to roles, systems, and scripts. He is not hostile, yet something about him disturbs you. He is a paradox. Unbound but grounded, detached but fully awake. And above all, he cannot be ruled. Why does such a man provoke fear? To answer that, we must confront a truth we've been conditioned to ignore. Most people do not want freedom. They want comfort. They want meaning handed to them, not wrestled from the abyss. They want to be ruled by governments, by gods, by gurus, even by algorithms, as long as the burden of choosing their path is taken from them. The man who cannot be ruled has made a decision most cannot bear. He has stared into the void and refused to look away. Carl Jung once warned, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But privilege implies cost. And the cost of becoming is high: alienation, responsibility, and exile from the tribal womb of conformity. This man has paid it. From the outside, he might appear as a dropout, a madman, or a recluse. But that's just the mask society places on those who threaten its order. Because the truly unruled man doesn't scream revolution. He doesn't carry banners or slogans. His revolt is silent, far more dangerous. It begins where every regime fears most. The mind. He has shed the myth of progress for progress's sake. He no longer salutes flags or kneels at altars. He does not seek purpose in possessions or salvation in fame. He has, in a word, awakened, and not in the sanitized, spiritualized sense sold to the masses. His awakening came through suffering, isolation, and brutal self-confrontation. The process is not glorious. As Arthur Schopenhauer noted, to live alone is the fate of all great souls. It is not companionship he lacks, but the willingness to dilute truth for company. He has chosen solitude over self-betrayal. Yet this choice makes him unbearable to the crowd, because he reminds them of everything they've avoided. His presence reflects their passivity, his clarity their confusion. He does not preach, but his very existence is a sermon. You could have chosen differently. You still can. But that choice would mean disobedience, not just to authority, but to identity. To abandon who you were told to be. To reject the comforting chains of cultural programming. This man has no master because he no longer needs one. His moral compass is internal, forged in fire, uncorrupted by incentives or threats. Viktor Frankl, having endured the unspeakable in Nazi concentration camps, wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." This man changed himself not once, but perpetually. And each layer he shed brought him closer to that unbearable freedom Sartre described, where man is condemned to be free, forever responsible for what he becomes. Such responsibility terrifies the world. Governments fear him because he cannot be manipulated. Corporations fear him because he cannot be sold. Religious institutions fear him because he has seen God without intermediaries. And individuals, ordinary, decent, obedient individuals, fear him most of all because he reveals that they are not victims but volunteers. Society whispers about freedom, but it runs from those who live it. And so, the unruled man becomes a myth, a threat, a lunatic in the cultural narrative. He must be discredited, dismissed, or destroyed, not because he is wrong, but because he is free. But what does it take to become such a man? How is one forged in a world that conspires to domesticate the soul? That question leads us to the next fracture, the crucible where the self begins to separate from the system. It begins slowly, not with rebellion but with doubt. A creeping sense that something is fundamentally off, not outside but within. The man who can't be ruled doesn't wake up one morning with a manifesto or a plan. He wakes up with silence. A silence that drowns out the noise of expectation, tradition, and obligation. And in that silence, something ancient stirs. First, it feels like discontent. He looks around, at the rituals of work, of worship, of relationships, and finds them hollow, rehearsed, like watching actors deliver lines they've forgotten the meaning of. He tries to play along. For a while, he smiles, nods, and performs. But inside, a fracture grows. A split between the self he shows and the self he hides. This is the crucible of separation. It is not rebellion for its own sake. It is disintegration, the death of the inherited self. The self shaped by parents, schools, creeds, and media. That version, the good son, the productive citizen, the respectable man, begins to rot under the weight of its own falsity. He withdraws, not out of arrogance but necessity. He stops watching the news, stops making small talk, stops chasing goals that were never his. He sits alone for hours, sometimes days, not in apathy but in agony. The mind, like a wounded animal, lashes out. Memories rise, regrets, betrayals, the inherited guilt of generations. In this abyss, most turn back. They run to therapists, to drugs, to distractions, anything to stop the unraveling. But he stays. He allows the unraveling. He lets himself fall apart. Because somewhere deep in the collapse, he senses truth. As Nietzsche once wrote, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. He embraces the chaos, not to master it but to understand it. And through this slow collapse, a strange kind of strength emerges. A strength not rooted in domination, but in authenticity. He begins to notice what no longer affects him. Praise, shame, expectation. These were the tools used to shape him. Now they pass through him like wind through open windows. Society calls this dissociation. Psychiatry might call it a breakdown, but it is neither. It is the breaking open of a man who was never allowed to be whole. What makes this so dangerous to the collective is that his transformation is internal. No protest, no manifesto, no Facebook post. Just a man quietly shedding his skin. This quiet terrifies the world. Because when he emerges from this crucible, he carries with him something no system can manufacture: internal authority. He no longer asks, is this allowed? Is this normal? Is this approved? He asks only, is this true? Is this just? Is this mine? And that shift, subtle, invisible, permanent, marks the birth of sovereignty. This sovereignty isn't loud. It doesn't demand others obey. It doesn't declare itself. In fact, it often passes unnoticed, hidden behind calm eyes and a still demeanor. But people feel it. They sense it in conversation, in presence, in the unspoken refusal to be defined. And it threatens the very structure of the social fabric. Why? Because it exposes a brutal truth. We've outsourced our authority. We obey systems without question. We internalize beliefs without investigation. We shape our desires to fit commercials and social media feeds. We are ruled not by tyrants but by our own compliance. And here stands a man who has exited the game. Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you." The unruled man has taken everything done to him, trauma, indoctrination, repression, and transmuted it into insight. He has chosen response over reaction. He has refused to become a mirror of his environment. This choice, though deeply personal, has far-reaching implications. Because once one man awakens to his sovereignty, others start to feel their chains. They may mock him, resent him, dismiss him. But secretly, they're curious. What does he know that I don't? How did he escape? And here lies the next paradox. The unruled man does not seek followers, but he attracts them. Not because he offers answers, but because he lives the question. He walks with uncertainty not as a burden, but as liberation. And in doing so, he challenges the deepest illusion of society, that safety lies in obedience. But obedience to what? To whom? If the self was built on borrowed beliefs, then who exactly is being protected? This is where the journey turns from personal to existential. The man who cannot be ruled is not just rejecting authority, he is redefining meaning. And meaning, once untethered from control, becomes a revolution unto itself. You can feel it, can't you? That aching, invisible war, not of guns or flags, but of meaning itself. A war waged in headlines, in classrooms, in algorithms, in whispers of doubt late at night when the glow of a screen is all that's left. In this war, truth is not shot, it is blurred. Because a society built on control cannot tolerate individuals who create their own meaning. Not religious meaning, not political meaning. Personal meaning, raw, intimate, unapproved by any institution. This is the terrain the unruled man walks. And this is why he must be silenced. We live in what Aldous Huxley once described as the age of noise. Endless stimulation, constant distraction, the illusion of choice wrapped around the machinery of compliance. Here, freedom is rebranded as consumption and rebellion becomes performance art. But the man who can't be ruled does not perform. He does not chase outrage or trend. He has stepped back, not to hide, but to see. And what he sees is this: the true control of society is not physical, but psychological. It operates through the erosion of meaning. We are taught to distrust silence, to fear stillness, to fill every void with curated content and sponsored thought. We are fed scripts about success, love, gender, faith, identity, all prepackaged, all market-tested. And when we question them, we are pathologized. But this man, he doesn't question them, he dismantles them. Not violently, but surgically. He sees that the world's chaos is not random, but engineered. That confusion is profitable. That meaninglessness is not an accident, it is a design. And in that moment of recognition, he does the one thing the system cannot endure. He stops playing. He refuses to adopt the latest labels. He does not pledge allegiance to opposing political tribes. He does not reduce himself to algorithms of identity. Instead, he reclaims the sacred task that modern life abandoned: the creation of personal meaning through suffering, reflection, and choice. This terrifies the culture, because once one person forges meaning from within, it exposes the emptiness of the approved meanings. It reveals how much of our lives are lived on autopilot, dictated by invisible scripts. Carl Jung warned, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And yet, that is exactly what the unruled man has done. He has faced his soul. And what he found was not a slogan or a system, but a wilderness. Meaning for him is not static. It evolves. It's painful, beautiful, contradictory. It cannot be mass-produced, sold, or simplified. But in a world addicted to certainty, such fluid meaning is heresy. And so the war begins. He is labeled unstable, arrogant, dangerous. His refusal to conform becomes a threat, not because it harms anyone, but because it questions everything. He is not an anarchist, but he lives as if no one owns his mind. He is not a prophet, but he speaks truths that cut through the fog. He is not loud, but his silence is deafening. The culture responds with ridicule, isolation, sometimes even forced intervention. It must, because his very presence destabilizes the collective trance. The moment someone lives authentically, others feel their fraudulence. And that feeling, shame mixed with awe, is intolerable. And yet, he persists, not out of pride but necessity. He is not seeking to win a war. He is seeking to live a life that is his. And that simple act is revolutionary. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, once wrote, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." The man who can't be ruled has found his purpose not in defiance, but in devotion to truth, to selfhood, to becoming. He is not lost, though he walks alone. He is not angry, though he has been betrayed. He is not superior, though he has transcended. He is simply free. And freedom, real freedom, is more than political. It is metaphysical. It is the realization that meaning must be chosen, not assigned. That responsibility must be owned, not delegated. That suffering must be transformed, not avoided. These truths are not popular. They don't trend well. They cannot be monetized, but they endure. And as the war on meaning intensifies, the unruled man becomes more necessary than ever, not as a leader, but as a reminder. A reminder that there is another way to live, that there is a door through the madness. And that door is not found in the noise, it is found in the still, ungoverned territory of the soul. But entering that territory has a cost. Because to walk that path is to confront the next great fear, not of society but of the self. There comes a moment, silent, unbearable, when the man who can't be ruled must confront what remains after every illusion has collapsed. He has broken from systems, burned old maps, walked alone into the desert of unlearning. And now, standing before him, is a mirror not made of glass, but of void. No labels, no ideologies, no borrowed beliefs to hide behind. Only himself, raw, stripped, unfinished. This is the true trial of sovereignty. Not separation from the world, but exposure to the self. To be unruled is not just to reject control. It is to assume full authorship of existence. That means owning every fear, every contradiction, every shadow we were taught to deny. And nothing reveals those shadows more than freedom itself. Because in freedom, there is no one left to blame. No boss, no priest, no politician. No parent, no trauma, no partner. There is only the trembling question. Now that no one is ruling me, what will I become? This is where most men turn back. We crave systems not because we love being controlled, but because we fear being alone with who we are. Systems provide architecture, ready-made purpose, ready-made enemies, ready-made absolution. But sovereignty provides nothing. It demands creation, and creation always begins with chaos. The unruled man does not escape this chaos. He enters it. He walks into the abyss not to conquer it, but to learn its shape. And in that dark mirror, he sees himself, not the idealized self, but the broken one. The angry, envious, frightened, forgotten self. He does not flinch. He watches. Jung called this process shadow integration, the confrontation with the parts of ourselves we have exiled. Until you make the unconscious conscious, he wrote, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The man who can't be ruled knows this. And so he does the most dangerous thing a man can do in the modern world. He turns inward with no safety net. There are no likes or followers in the abyss. No applause. No validation. It is not a hero's journey. It is a soul's reckoning. He remembers his lies. The ways he manipulated, avoided, pretended. The ways he betrayed his own instincts to belong. The masks he wore to be loved. And he sees the cost of every compromise. Not in lost time, but in lost selfhood. This confrontation is not noble. It is messy. It is humiliating. He might cry, scream, break. He might feel he is dying. And in a way he is. Because what dies in this mirror is the artificial self, the one designed to please, survive, perform. The one who adapted to dysfunction, who silenced his rage, who swallowed his questions. That self cannot survive in the truth. And so, in its place, something deeper begins to emerge. Not a perfected man, but a whole one. One who can sit with paradox. Who can feel grief without collapse, desire without shame, rage without vengeance. He no longer needs to be right, he needs to be real. Arthur Schopenhauer wrote, a man can be himself only so long as he is alone. But this solitude is not just physical. It is psychic. It is the solitude of knowing that no one else can walk this path for you. That no book, no lover, no doctrine will complete you. Completion must be carved from within. And here, the man who can't be ruled discovers something he never expected to find on the other side of detachment, compassion. Not the cheap kind offered by institutions, but the fierce compassion born from pain transmuted into presence. He sees the madness of others because he has faced his own. He forgives not because it's moral, but because he understands. And yet, he does not return to conformity. He does not rejoin the performance. He remains outside, not out of bitterness, but because he no longer fits. He has become asymmetrical to society's architecture. This is the paradox of awakening. The more you heal, the less you belong. Because most of what we call belonging is trauma bonding dressed as tradition. And so, the man who cannot be ruled walks on, not elevated, not enlightened, but clear. He no longer seeks a place to hide his truth. He becomes the place where truth resides. Others may sense it when they speak to him. A strange calm. A refusal to posture. A groundedness that makes their ego twitch. They might resent him or admire him. But either way, they'll remember him. Because in a world addicted to artifice, the real is radioactive. He has crossed the threshold. The system can no longer touch him, not because he escaped it, but because he transcended the need for it. And now the question deepens. If such a man exists and cannot be bought, led, shamed, or seduced, what does that mean for the future of society? He doesn't look dangerous. He may not wear strange clothes or speak in riddles. He might sit across from you in a coffee shop, quiet and unassuming, eyes scanning not the room but something within. And yet his mere presence unsettles. Not because he threatens anyone, but because he challenges everything silently. He is the man who cannot be ruled. And in a world built on control, that makes him an existential threat. It's not what he says. It's what he doesn't say. He doesn't play the game. He doesn't participate in the outrage cycles, the echo chambers, the psychological theater of public morality. He doesn't recite the expected lines. He listens not to respond, but to perceive. He moves through the world not with defiance, but with a strange kind of stillness, as if he's already resolved something that everyone else is still running from. And that stillness, it reveals the restlessness in others. This is why society, even when it senses the necessity of such a man, cannot fully embrace him. He exposes the lie not through accusation, but by existing. Most of us are governed by borrowed truths, programmed responses, inherited guilt. We crave safety and validation more than truth. We want community without conflict, virtue without suffering, growth without sacrifice. The unruled man threatens that fantasy, because he embodies the cost of true freedom. And that cost is terrifying. He has walked through fire. He has bled, broken, rebuilt. He has dismantled everything false in himself. And now, standing free, he serves as a living reminder of what others could become if only they dared. But to dare means to lose everything artificial. And most are not ready. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." The unruled man has paid that price. And now he possesses something society cannot manufacture: integrity. But integrity is disruptive, questions silently, cannot be bribed. It refuses the bargain of comfort for conformity, cannot be politicized, monetized, or ritualized. It moves on its own terms. So what does society do with such a man? It tries to neutralize him, not always with force, more often with flattery, offers, false alliances, invitations to rejoin the fold, to soften the edge, to play just enough of the game to make others comfortable again. He might be offered positions of power, media influence, curated admiration, but he sees through it. He knows that the system co-opts what it cannot kill, that revolutions become brands, truth becomes trend, and the sovereign soul becomes a guru if he's not vigilant. So he declines, quietly, calmly, without judgment. He does not need the stage. He is not here to lead movements or collect followers. He is not trying to fix the world. He is trying to become fully human, and that, in itself, is the most revolutionary act in an inhuman age. His threat is not ideological. It's ontological. He doesn't reject one system in favor of another. He doesn't swap left for right or religion for reason. He transcends categories. His allegiance is not to identity but to essence. He has become indivisible, and that makes him the most dangerous kind of man, the one who cannot be manipulated through fear or desire. And yet, the world needs him, not to save it, but to remind it of what is possible. In times of decay, such men are not optional, they are essential. Like antibodies in a diseased body, their presence signals the potential for healing. Not by force, but by example. They remind us that a life of sovereignty is possible. That one can live with conviction without ideology, with depth without drama, with power without domination. But for such men to exist in the open, society must evolve. It must relinquish its obsession with control. It must learn to tolerate discomfort, to honor divergence, to welcome contradiction. Most cultures are not ready. So the unrolled man remains on the edge, respected, feared, occasionally vilified, rarely understood. A myth to some, a menace to others. And yet, beneath it all, he serves the culture in the most vital way. He holds a mirror, not to condemn, but to reveal. And what he reveals is not just the corruption of systems or the lies of power. He reveals the hidden longing in every soul to be free, truly free. Not just from others, but from the false self within. That longing is painful, and sacred, and true. And for those brave enough to face it, the unruled man becomes not a threat, but a guide. He does not leave behind a movement. There are no banners with his name, no chants echoing his beliefs. No holy texts, no dogma to guard. His legacy is quieter, subtler, yet far more enduring. He leaves behind a path, not marked by signposts, but by presence. By the way he walked, aware, unowned, unafraid. The man who cannot be ruled does not demand that others follow. But his life carves a trail through the forest of fear, and some, upon glimpsing it, feel something stir deep within. A hunger, a memory, a sacred ache that cannot be silenced anymore, the call to inner freedom. What if freedom was never meant to be granted but remembered? What if all the systems, political, cultural, religious, are only scaffolds, useful perhaps, but never sufficient for the soul's becoming? What if sovereignty is not rebellion but reclamation? Not a fight against the world, but a return to what was true before the world told you who to be. In this future, the unrolled future, a new kind of human emerges. Not superior, not perfect, but awake. No longer playing the roles assigned to him. No longer chasing belonging at the cost of integrity. No longer asking for permission to exist on his own terms. He simply is. Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you." And this man, this future human, takes the pain, the confusion, the inherited stories, and turns them into raw material for becoming. He does not seek to destroy the old world, but to transmute it through the only space where transformation is real, the individual soul. In this future, systems do not vanish, but they shrink in importance. They become tools, not temples. They serve the human spirit, not the other way around. And leaders? They become fewer, because more people are leading themselves. This is not utopia. There is still struggle, still sorrow. But the people who emerge from this shift are no longer sleepwalking. They know the cost of their freedom, and they have paid it. So how does one walk this path? Not with slogans, not with borrowed beliefs, but with sacred silence, with radical honesty, with a commitment to inner excavation so deep that nothing false survives. It is a descent before it is a rise, a death before it is a birth. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming one's true self. It is not easy, it is not linear, but it is the only thing that will matter when all else falls away. Because here is the truth. The man who cannot be ruled is not rare because he is elite. He is rare because he has remembered who he is before the world named him, before trauma shaped him, before fear blinded him. That remembering is available to us all. But it will cost. It will cost every mask, every lie, every illusion we cling to. It will cost the approval of the herd. It will cost the certainty of ready-made answers. But in return, it offers something unspeakable. A life lived in alignment with essence. Not perfect, not safe, but real. Viktor Frankl, who endured the horrors of the concentration camps, wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. The world may not yet be ready for this shift, but that doesn't matter, because revolutions don't begin in crowds. They begin in one quiet room, with one quiet man, who chooses to face himself, who refuses to be owned, who reclaims the sacred flame of inner freedom and guards it, not as a weapon, but as a light for those still trapped in the dark. The man who cannot be ruled is not our savior. He is our mirror, and through him we see not just what the world is, but what it could become. If we're willing, if we're ready, if we remember,